questions. I had the chance to watch the movie, and I knew nothing about the Falcons Robotics team. I knew nothing. I didn't know that it was based on a true story. I just thought it looked like a really good movie. So I was really excited when David sent the request to me, and that they actually let me screen it before it came out in theaters. And it depicted a lot of the challenges that the team faced during the build, such as, you know, some of the design challenges and the personality difference between the team members. And I was just kind of curious, what other challenges did the team face during the build that the movie may have left out? I don't know if you guys saw the actual movie. And I was just kind of curious of what the process was when it came to finding solutions for those specific challenges, and does the movie show an accurate depiction of what you guys went through?
One of the biggest differences I saw was that in the movie, you know, we had a problem and they immediately had a solution right there. That didn't really happen during the project, where we had to spend days, you know, researching different ideas and then testing some out that we could with, you know, very inexpensive prototypes, and then we would try ideas until we found something that would reliably work the cheapest. And that was the biggest one I saw with the actual construction process of the robot.
Keeping in mind that, you know, a movie has a certain format they have to fit, so they adjust the story to, you know, fit that timeline. So, you know, the idea of tampon didn't come as fast either. That was maybe an hour-long discussion on our way to find something to eat in the van when we came up with that idea. But, you know, that for the most part, the general feeling of the movie, other than the time scale, yeah, I would say it was pretty close.
So what were each of you responsible for when it came to building the robot, and how were those roles chosen? Did it kind of just fall in your lap and fall in place where you guys were like, okay, this is sort of going to be the leader, this is going to be the mastermind, or did you each have like a specific role, or did you each kind of contribute to all of the roles?
At the beginning, it was a little different. I mean, in the beginning, there was a different team totally. I mean, it was mostly seniors at the beginning. And towards the end of the year, it was just Oscar and me. So the team changed completely different from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So at the beginning, it was mostly me and Oscar designing and building prototypes and testing prototypes and stuff like that. But towards the end, it was all four of us plus one.
Yeah. What happened was that because towards the end we had such a small team of just 4 members, everybody had certain portions that they were supposed to research in depth, and then they would share that knowledge with the rest of the team. But by the end, everybody had a pretty well good knowledge of what the entire robot project itself. So I mean, we kind of had to pool our times together. So one day I'll be working on thrusters, and then I would switch off and work on the controller, and it was basically shifting our time priority based on what needed to be done at that point in time.
And to answer really broadly, people would show different talents as they worked in the group, and that sort of became, that was their comfort zone. So they would gravitate toward those areas. Like Christian tended to go toward electronics, Lorenzo tended to go toward more of the nuts and bolts kind of stuff.
A lot of the aesthetic stuff.
Yeah, and like the look of the color and that kind of thing. Luis was like assistant builder, and he did some electrical, soldering. So there's a little bit of overlap, and it just turned out that Oscar, was kind of he understood the whole thing from the standpoint of how we're going to execute the mission. Mm-hmm. So he kind of gravitated toward being the leader. And one of our pilots, which they didn't mention in the movie because, again, it messes that up too much, but Oscar was not originally going to be one of the pilots. He was going to be standing behind the 2 pilots and giving instructions. Yeah. But one of those pilots ended up having to go to summer school because he didn't take care of his grades. And Oscar had to step in with only like 1 day of practice to become the pilot. So we lost our captain, so to speak, standing behind. So the fact that everyone knew a little bit about everything kind of made it possible for people to step into other people's positions, but everyone gravitated to where they were comfortable.
Okay. And in the beginning, it showed in the movie that the collaboration process wasn't that easy because you guys had different personalities. How were you able to get over those difficulties, and when was the moment that you guys were like, yeah, we click and this is a good team? Can you kind of describe that moment?
That was a little bit Hollywood on there. I mean, we didn't really have any issues, getting along.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was like, small friction.
Minor friction.
People had bad days, and that kind of happens with anything. But I mean, this project was very, very relaxed because I mean, we were coming in with very low expectations of our performance, but we still tried to give it our all. And everybody, realized that everybody's putting in their own personal time to be here, and they're not here. They were there to contribute, and we all respected that very well. So we didn't really have any fights or anything, and everybody was very focused on actually getting it done.
Now, did you read the book?
I did not.
Okay, so if you read the book, it actually explains. It goes into the background of each of the kids.
Okay.
What they experienced. Lorenzo wasn't always serious. He was a little bit of a jokester. That didn't come out in the movie. Lorenzo tended to be. He was more serious in the movie.
Yeah.
So, they just played with the roles just a little bit to fit what they were trying to do. They had a certain, like, for instance, I was played by George Lopez, but really that's a combination of myself and Dr. Cameron that George Lopez was playing. Neither of us were engineers, and yet in the movie he was an engineer whose wife died in a car accident, or no, kid died in a car accident, and wife left him because she couldn't reconcile the death of her child. That never happened. We each had our own wives. We never lost anybody. We never had a car accident. So they did whatever was necessary to make the movie happen. And some of the characters
are very different.
Some of the parts of the characters were the same, and they added or changed certain things.
How do you guys feel about that? Like, does that kind of make you upset a little bit, or are you just okay that the movie got out and got your message out?
Not really, because we have a documentary too. So if you want to know the real story, watch Underwater Dreams and read the book.
Well, one of the things you got to keep in mind is that we signed the movie contract a little over 10 years ago, so we had a while to get used to the idea. Oh, there's going to be a fictional portrayal of your real life character, so you got kind of used to it. Plus, they didn't change anything too drastically, so it wasn't like a huge difference in character.
Well, for you guys, but for me and Cameron, it was a big difference.
Yeah, you were like, I mean, was Cameron kind of like, okay, who? I mean, I think that's kind of disappointing that one of you was left out in a way, and not.
Well, yes and no. The character's name was Freddie Cameron. That's my first name, his last name. So our names were in there, and even though neither of us were engineers, Alan Cameron did get his PhD in elementary ed. Okay. So the doctor part made it in, and then in reality, Alan was the one that was the computer programmer, hence he's Marissa Tomei. So really, I'm George Lopez and he's Marissa Tomei, if you want to get down to it. As far as the storyline goes, that's the closest fit. Because I didn't know anything about programming, but like they said, we had time to get used to it. We also I think the documentary diffused a lot of it because, like I said, there is a story out there that is, telling the truth. So in the book, so I don't feel that uncomfortable because the major point of the movie was to reach the audience that the documentary and the book didn't.
Okay.
To push the story forward. Now, whether or not we're depicted, true to life, that doesn't matter.
They got the message right.
They got the message. But it is interesting because I just came back from Austin and I did a presentation there, a 45-minute speech, and then when I was done, people came up to me and were thanking me because it said that's very rare that they find a Latino as a role model. And I had to explain to them that I'm not Latino, I'm Iranian. I was played by a Latino who played Latino in the movie. So I'm doing damage control. They said, have you ever really been slapped? And I'm like, no, I've never been slapped. There's probably people who wanted to slap me, but I've never been slapped.
Right.
So, it's maybe a little annoying, but it's only annoying when you have to answer it like for the 15th time.
Right. So then to get back to the actual robot that you guys made for the challenge, how did you come up with the design? Did you just research maybe some of the other robotics from other challenges, or is it just something that
we read the article? They gave us when we first started the competition. They gave us a scenario. We had to fit into this dimensions. We had to go around in a certain confined space, so we knew the dimensions that we had to build the ROV. Then they gave us tasks that we had to complete, so we knew we had to grab stuff we knew we had to measure stuff, so we had to figure out what we were going to use to measure, what we were going to use to grab. We had to use something to tell temperature, so we had to find some sort of temperature device. We had to find some sort of suction device. So they gave us a bunch of tasks. They gave us dimensions that we needed to follow, and basically that's where we got our design from. We drew within those confinements.
Form follows function.
Yeah,
is basically what it came down to.
We basically built it because we've done land-based robot competitions before, so we actually kind of built the frame of the ROV based on like the kind of design work we had done before, which was a little
at home.
Probably.
It looks more like an architectural design than an actual robot, just because we actually built the frame and then we shrunk it as far as we could until we could actually fit all the components reliably. It was funny because we tried finding, examples of ROVs to build, and the materials they used didn't allow us that kind of freedom, as at least the materials we could afford. So if you're using PVC because that's all you can afford, everything's going to look like a box because that's the right angle we have.
And we got only the rudimentary design elements from looking at other robots, like positioning of thrusters and angling them. So that's about the only thing we really got of looking at other ROVs. And I see Alan's joined us. It looks like he's joined us from his house.
Hi, Alan.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, how are you doing?
Okay, fine. Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry, I went to the other address you sent the other couple days ago, and nobody was joining, so then I figured it out.
Oh, I'm going to have to talk to them about that.
Maybe that's what
Yeah, this new technology, it's not going to last. I can't figure it out.
And then just to kind of continue the conversation, when the day of the challenge actually came up, did that actually happen where you guys were standing in line and you were like, hey, let's enter the college one instead? Did that actually happen or no?
No, we made that decision far in advance. When we were signing up, we had that discussion that they had. We had that discussion months earlier, not at the line.
So why did you decide to join the college competition instead of the high school one? What was the motivation behind that thought process?
For multiple reasons. One, if we thought we were going to lose, so if we're going to lose, we wanted to lose against, someplace where it looked better when you lost. And we also wanted to learn, and so if you're going to learn, why not learn from the best group? So those two things. And then the third reason was, if we beat a school, that would be fantastic. We beat one college team.
Yeah, we could finish 11th out of 12, and that would still be a huge accomplishment.
That's a great way to think about it, though. Like I thought that was cool in the movie. I was just like, yeah, I'd probably want to do that too. And if you didn't come in the last place, at least you beat one school, and that would be something to brag about, especially being in high school. So then, in your guys' opinion, why are these kinds of programs important, especially in the high school atmosphere? Like, what made this important to you at the time that you guys were going through this experience? And I mean, why was it important for you to continue doing it in design? And how did it help maybe the rest of your high school career? I mean, I know most of you were seniors, or even after your high school career. Like, why was it important?
From my personal point of view, I mean, in the movie I come out as the brainy kid, does all the thinking, and in the team that wasn't really the case. I mean, we all shared ideas, but one of the problems would be that that's not really something you get to do a whole lot when you're in high school, especially in our public education system, where it's all book work. You're teaching to the lowest common standard. Your Ames tests in this area are basically what the whole school teaches you and prepares you for. And I was very, very bored and unmotivated to really try and do anything outside of this education, because I wanted to do something better, but there wasn't really any option, and this was kind of my way of applying everything I had learned and also applying new challenges that were much more rigorous than what we had been accustomed to in the school. And it was similar for some of the other students. Like Oscar had similar issues where he wasn't really finding his way because ROTC and his military career that he wanted was no longer an option for him. So he found this as a kind of way to keep pushing his education forward. And what about you, Luis?
Well, I kind of learned about it a little too late. I mean, I didn't learn about robotics till almost senior year, so it was a little late for me to continue on after high school. So I just did what most people in my situation do, is work. So I worked from basically 1 to 2 jobs a day. So depends on the day. But that was me, and then I got into cooking from a younger age, so I've been doing that for a while.
And Alan and I wanted to basically just have fun with kids in science and technology to show them that it's not just, you know, in the textbook and boring, that you can actually do real stuff and that it's exciting. Mm-hmm. Alan? You want to
add? Well, you guys probably pretty much explained that. Did you mention to her that we did the summer workshop, no. You know, a few months? Okay. There were several reasons we did it. First of all, this would have really been our third year doing robots, but we did land robots. You know, you drive them around in the first robotics competition. And it was about a year previous to this underwater competition, I came across an email that the organization was looking for teachers who wanted to go to a workshop in Santa Barbara, and they were going to pay a little bit for travel. You know, the room and board was all taken care of, and it was in the middle of summer. So I went to Freddie and I said, hey, what are you doing, you know, summertime? You just, you know, going, my God, it's 110 degrees outside. How about if we go to Santa Barbara? We have to go to an underwater robot workshop, and, you know, what do you think? So we applied, and that's where we learned the mate and some of the building of the ROVs. But also part of that was then you would field a team the following summer. So we knew we had to do a mate ROV, at least we said we were going to do it. And we kind of put it on a back burner thing. It wasn't like we were really working hard to build an underwater ROV. In our spare time, we'd start putting things together. And I don't think it was like about a month before the competition, we really, when summer vacation was starting, that we really, you know, were working, you know, 4 or 5 hours a day on it to get it done. So part of it was we had a free workshop in Santa Barbara, and part of it was we said that we were going to field a team. And it was also in our first robotics, it's very intense from January to March. But the rest of the year, there's not a lot going on in robotics. So this kind of filled in the time from March until the end of school for the kids and for us. And so we had the time, we had the interest, and it kind of continued our robotics activities more throughout the year. And it turned out to be a lot of fun, especially when you win.
So can you guys get into that a little bit, like that moment that you were all sitting and waiting to hear the announcement of the winners? Like, how was that? Like, what did you all feel at that time?
Well, they announced everything in a progression. So they started with probably, I guess, the simplest award, the Judges Award. And we thought that was like a token award because we got that. And we thought, well, we're not getting anything else. And then they wanted to send us home and not let us feel bad. Because we were the only people of, you know, color there. So they wanted us to feel like, you know, that somebody paid attention to us. That's what we thought it was. Now we think it was because of the use of tampons, although they've never confirmed or denied that. And then when we won a Elegance and Design Award, we started paying a little more attention, saying, wow, they actually liked something we did.
Yeah, they actually liked the, you know, the whole general layout of Stinky, the colors, you know, the simplicity and design. Yeah,
and our wires were all internal frames, so all that stuff. And then they gave us an award for technical writing.
And that's worth points.
And that was one of the categories that they add up to, you know, the different categories to make the overall winner. So we started thinking, you know, maybe something, you know, we got third or something like that, locked up, you know, that we pretty much did that. And by this time, MIT had won 3 awards as well, but they were different awards. Mm-hmm. To outright MIT, that was a big, you know, feather in our cap. So we were going in thinking we got it, and then a 3rd place. And then when they announced 3rd place as Cape Fear Community College, we all sank. We thought, wow, we must have got 4th, you know. And then they announced MIT as 2nd place, and we were silent because the one possibility is, although it seemed extremely remote, was we won. More likely was we got 4th. But the question on everybody's mind was who was first.
Right.
Because everybody else was pretty far behind.
So when they announced us as first place, it confirmed our remotest hope that that could possibly be it, and we were stunned.
Everybody just started screaming, and it got. I mean, you could hear in some of the clips, like you just hear the whole room just go crazy because I mean we were the kind of the underdogs in the whole competition, and they don't mention this a whole lot, but they were actually the high school division teams were in that same award ceremony. So they were actually in the crowd. So I mean, they knew that they had come by our pit and seen our robot, and we shared ideas and some of the issues we had because we were the high school team and we were competing with like the big boys. So they were kind of rooting for us in their own way. And so you hear all the high school team just go nuts because another fellow high school team had won the entire competition against MIT, Cape Fear Community College, and all these really other strong engineering schools that they had probably applied to as well.
And it felt like, how like sometimes you daydream that you're beating everybody in a race or something?
Yeah.
This was like 10 times stronger feeling, but it still didn't feel real. It just felt like a daydream came to life,
Right. How did the college and the universities, how did they respond to you winning the competition? Were they very open, like it kind of showed in the movie? Were they very supportive, or was there some kind of like, are you kidding me? You guys damaged our ego. Like, was there a little bitterness there from them?
I think MIT was a little bit stunned. We didn't have any. They didn't come over and say good job or anything like that. But I think that's because they didn't know what happened. They were trying to figure out what just happened. The other schools that I guess weren't in contention were very friendly toward us. So we do remember that was kind of odd that
Cape Fear said congratulations.
Yes, the Cape Fear came over and said good job to us, but I think MIT was just
they were stunned.
They couldn't believe it. The same reason we couldn't believe it that we won, they couldn't believe it that they lost.
That's a great experience. What do you think your experience for that year? Because that was the first year that the high school had a robotics team, correct? Or was there?
We had a land-based robotics team for 2 years, and this was a summer competition before our third year of land robotics. Now, Luis and Oscar were not on the robotics team.
Lorenzo and I were.
Lorenzo and Christian were. So they had some robotic experience prior to. So again, something that the movie didn't depict.
Yeah, but this was all our first year too, doing it.
Yeah.
So in those competitions, did you compete with the land robotics and the other?
Yeah, we competed with land robots against other high schools.
Other high schools? How did you fare in those competitions? Did you?
We were about half. We were in the middle for the first few years. We got a lot of recognition for our robotics program, but not for the robot itself.
Yeah, we were middle of the road.
So with this particular competition where you beat MIT and the other universities, how do you feel that experience has set the bar for classes after you?
Why don't you answer this one?
Me?
Yeah, you've been.
Well, he said classes. So I would say that it became very, very difficult for any student to come into class and say, well, we can't compete against those white schools or those schools that are, have the word academy or prep or whatever on the end of their name. It became impossible for them to say that, or say that we don't have any money, or to say that, well, we're undocumented, we can't do stuff like that. All those things went out the window because every one of those scenarios these guys went through. So anytime anyone even thought about saying that, said, oh, really? Really? That you can't do it? How did these guys do it? So they wanted to carry the torch to the next level because they didn't want to let down, their school. So any kids that come into the program now are looking for the next branch to climb up on the tree, so to speak.
So then Freddie and Luis, or Christian and Luis, do you guys come back and kind of help the other groups, or?
I try to when I can, but I mean we've been so busy this year. I said this year I was going to come full time because I didn't have a job. I don't have a job right now, so I was like, oh, I have free time to go help you guys work on the robot. But all this publicity stuff has really, taken up a lot of our time, so I've been able to do that as much as I wanted to, or really at all this year. But yeah, previous years I've come and help them with their land robot. They're actually in the middle of building the robot for the land-based robot competition right now. What is this, week 5 of 6 or something?
Yeah, they're actually week 6.
Week 6 of 6.
So I got 20 people next door building unsupervised right now.
I'll try to hurry up then so you can go supervise them. Well, then, just a couple of questions for you, Freddie, right now. Why is it important for the story of the first Falcon team to be shared? Like, why is that important?
I think it's very important on many levels. From an educational standpoint, you know, we're in this flux that everyone thinks that there needs to be reform in education in the United States, and that may be true. The thing I feel as a teacher that's on the front lines, I think that a lot of times we get ignored on what needs to be taught. And it's also, if you go past college and you look at what industry is asking for, the schools aren't reaching those things. We're worried about standardized tests, marking every checkbox on an evaluation form. Nowhere in anything that I'm being told at any staff meeting or any kind of workshop do they ever address inspiration and motivating the students like the robotics programs do. So I just don't see anyone sitting down saying, oh my God, this is Common Core, I can't wait to learn something. That's not happening. You want to add something to that, Alan?
No, go ahead. Keep talking.
Okay, so he's waiting for me to finish so he could add his part. But the other thing is that there's something people need to understand, and this is something that gets constantly buried this way. Talent can come from any part in the United States, from any demographic. It needs to stop being thought of as that only those schools can do that thing. Anybody can do it. You just have to find a way for the obstacles that other teams might or other groups might face, for ways to them to negotiate those obstacles. So you can't dismiss any part of the population because you don't know where that next brilliant idea is going to come from. And not only population, but gender. That's another thing that we've seen as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have to embrace the diversity of your team, both in the demographics that you have and in the academic abilities. Not every person that comes up with a great idea is the smart kid. It might be the kid that's struggling in school for whatever reason it might be. Maybe the academics is the issue. Maybe it's just he's had so many other things in his life that he couldn't concentrate on academics. You don't know. That's why everybody is embraced on the team, from the person that's the lowest academic to the highest. So that everybody can, the more diversity you have, the stronger our team can be. And so that's another thing. The third thing is the immigration issue. Here you have all these kids in the United States that are doing these incredible things, and they're not being recognized for what they're doing. Many of them are valedictorian of their schools and colleges. Many of them want to serve in the military. Many of them gone on to university, paid out-of-state tuition despite the fact that they pay taxes in the United States. Because, I mean, with deferred action now in Arizona, you were paying taxes. But if you want to go take university classes because you're under deferred action, you have to pay out-of-state tuition like you're a foreigner from another country. Even though you live here, you pay taxes here, you work here, and just recently now, until then, you couldn't even drive here. Even though you're allowed to work here and pay taxes, you couldn't drive. So last I heard, there's a court reviewing the tuition issue in Arizona, and they're, I guess, bringing up these other things I just mentioned. So the undocumented issue is another thing that I really want pushed up there, that we have a huge population that can add to the well-being and the intelligent base and the socioeconomic class of the United States. Why are we ignoring them after we spend all this time educating them? You know, why don't we put them in our society and give them a way for them to contribute? Because they're not trying to sit here like Al-Qaeda and undermine everything. They want to pay taxes like everyone else, get a job like everyone else, drive a car like everyone else, become an engineer like everyone else that's doing it. Why are we trying to stop them? It doesn't make any sense. If we have, you know, they're saying, well, they're coming and taking our jobs. Really? How come we look for 2 million people for engineering outside the United States? In my book, if any one of these kids wants to be an engineer, you should automatically give them a green card. Why are we going overseas to get people that don't even know our culture? And these kids have been brought up, raised, trained, indoctrinated, everything here. Why would we throw them out? It just makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, especially if they have the passion that they have.
Exactly.
Do that kind of stuff. I mean, it was good to see that in the movie, that the kids, regardless of the challenges that they had faced in their own personal lives, this was something that they still wanted to do, and they were willing to work hard to do it. And willing to go into the store and buy a box of tampons, even though that might have been very uncomfortable for them to do. They were still willing to go that extra mile to do this, and even have the courage to go up to college universities and top engineering schools. Like that's not something a lot of high schools would have had the nerve to do, but they were like, oh, why the hell not? Let's do it. So, absolutely. Alan, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, Freddie and I, we answer the same questions quite often, so everything he said. The one point I would like to make, though, that we'd like to see people get out of this, which is not going to happen, is I like to tell people, I say, everyone keeps going, God, what are you doing at Carl Hayden that is so fantastic? How come your kids are beating these universities? By the way, we beat MIT 3 years in a row. The second year we went back, we came in third place, but we beat MIT. The third year we came back, and we were in second place. It was all in the university division, and we beat MIT again. And then the fourth year, they were going to have the competition in Canada, but we had undocumented kids, so there's no way we were leaving the country. So that's the last time we competed in MATE. But what I tell people, I say, you keep looking at us saying, God, what are you doing that's so great? What you should be asking is, what are the universities doing that they can't beat a high school team? Because if somebody's paying $50, $60 a year to go to MIT, one of the most prestigious engineering colleges, and they get beat by a high school 3 year row, either we are a superior university team, or there's something wrong at the university level. The engineers they're producing somehow can't compete against us as well as they should. And so that's one thing I'd like people to think about. It isn't that we're so fantastic, it's that actually the universities were easier to beat than we thought. And the other thing to think about is in the movie they make Christian to be really like Sheldon and like the super nerd, like the brain, and is just spitting. He's a very intelligent, smart kid.
There's nothing wrong with being a super nerd.
Oh, what? A super nerd.
Yeah, he's a regular high school kid. Luis is a regular high school kid. So's Oscar, so Lorenzo. They're the same kids that live down the block from you. We are just regular people. We aren't really, cut from a strange mold or something. The difference is our kids were motivated. They worked on it. They learned how to solve problems. They asked for help. There's a whole bunch of things that we did that the typical university student doesn't do. When we're stuck and we're in trouble, we ask for help. In the university, that kind of looks like you're not doing your own work if you ask for help. So our learning style that we do in the robotics club is really not quite what they do at the university or most high schools, actually. But you won't see that in the movie. They make us look like super people so that everyone else can figure, well, that's not me. I'm not one of those 4 super robot kids. But we are. We are exactly people are.
Well, to close up this interview, is there anything else that you guys want to comment on or add? Maybe, touching back on the movie, maybe talk about something that they missed completely that you wish they would have hit the nail on the head about, or something that they got perfectly right that, is important for audiences to know that they did get. Maybe touch on that kind of.
Well, I think the movie, it wasn't supposed to be a movie that would, be a major Academy Award and be super extreme life-changing. I think it was designed to basically show how a group of people can come together and do something extraordinary if they just put their minds to it. And I think you just got to look at it that way. A better thing, if you want to, see what again, is look at the documentary. Because that really goes into more detail about, if some of the questions you're asking about how, what would the movie have covered? If I had to pick on anything, as well, why did the movie stop at the award? Like, why didn't they tell at the end, who went where? And they did that in the credits.
Yeah, because they still had the rights to our life for the following 7 years. So they could have included that if they had wanted to.
So they just briefly mentioned about how Oscar ended up being self-deported, and then he came back, and then he went into military, served in Afghanistan. How Lorenzo and Luis went into the catering business and are looking at starting their own restaurant, and how Christian had to drop out of school because of Proposition 300, and now he's trying to go back. So but then that would be a 3-hour movie. So like I said, the movie did what it was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. The documentary fills in those holes.
Okay.
And the book does as well. So I don't think it's fair to criticize a movie for something it wasn't even trying to do. Gotcha. It never wanted to do that, didn't try to do that. Just as a nod and a wink to the kids, they put the stuff at the end.
Was that a little disappointing, though, or?
No.
We weren't expecting it. We weren't expecting it for them to go into that much detail.
Yeah, I was a little surprised with how much they actually, brought the immigration issue into the movie. I mean, I thought they were gonna kind of whitewash it a little bit, but no, I mean, it was at the forefront. It wasn't like they shied away from it, and that was pretty impressive. I mean, that was more than I had been expecting.
And like I said, I think that was the whole point, is they wanted to put a face on the undocumented student, because it's so easy for people that are against the movement to just say, well, just ship them back because they came here illegally. And I think it's harder once you get to know the kids, get to see what they have to go through and everything. And I think that was the point of the movie. So I don't think so. But another test that's coming out is maybe in a couple more weeks. There's a movie called McFarland that Disney's backing, and it's